Chapter 1. The Unexpected Arrival.
The day began like any other on the remote mining colony of Zenthara, a rocky planet located in the far reaches of the galaxy. Its harsh terrain and brutal weather conditions made it one of the least desirable locations in the known universe.
Yet, for the sake of valuable resources, humans and aliens alike had come to coexist here, eking out a living in the shadow of towering mountains and beneath the ever-present grey skies.
John Carter, a mechanic by trade, had never imagined his life would lead him to such a place. His days were filled with monotonous tasks, repairing mining equipment and ensuring the colony's systems remained functional.
It was a lonely existence, far from the bustling cities of Earth he once called home. But that was before the accident. Before he had lost everything that mattered and found himself running away from the painful memories. One day, while working on a malfunctioning drilling rig near the edge of the colony,
John's routine was shattered by a sudden, blinding light that illuminated the sky.
He shielded his eyes and looked up, only to see a small ship descending rapidly, its hull ablaze. The vessel, sleek and unfamiliar, crashed into the rocky landscape with a thunderous impact,
sending a shockwave through the ground that nearly knocked him off his feet.
Without thinking, John rushed toward the wreckage. Flames licked the twisted metal, and the air was thick with smoke, but he pressed on, driven by an instinct to help. As he approached the shattered remains of the ship, he noticed a figure trapped inside a woman, unlike any he had ever seen. Her skin was a deep shade of indigo, shimmering with an iridescent glow, and
her eyes, large and almond-shaped, radiated a sense of both fear and determination.
She was struggling to free herself from the wreckage, her breath labored and her movements sluggish.
John hesitated for only a moment before springing into action.
With a surge of adrenaline, he pried open the twisted metal and pulled the woman free, carrying her to safety just as the ship's fuel ignited in a fiery explosion.
Breathing heavily, John laid her down on the ground and quickly checked her for injuries.
Despite her alien appearance, she was remarkably human-like in form, though taller and more slender. As he tended to her wounds, her eyes fluttered open, locking onto his with an intensity that took him by surprise.
"Thank you," she whispered, her voice melodic and soft, though it carried a hint of an accent that John couldn't place. "Don't mention it," he replied, offering a reassuring smile.
"You are safe now." But even as he spoke, John had no idea just how drastically his life was about to change. Chapter 2. The Captive Becomes the Caregiver.
The alien woman who introduced herself as Zara was a member of a race known as the Seraphis, a matriarchal society of highly advanced beings who lived in harmony with nature. They were known for their beauty, wisdom, and the mysterious power they wielded over the elements. Zara explained that she had been on a mission of peace when her ship was attacked by hostile forces, forcing her to crash land on Zenthara. As the days passed, John took it upon himself to care for Zara, tending to her injuries and providing her with food and shelter. The colony's other inhabitants were wary of the newcomer, their xenophobia evident in the way they avoided her.
But John saw something different in Zara's innate kindness, a sense of vulnerability that drew him to her.
Despite the language barrier, they found ways to communicate, slowly building a bridge of understanding. John was fascinated by Zara's stories of her homeworld, a place of breathtaking beauty and peace, so different from the harsh reality of Zenthara. In turn, she seemed intrigued by his tales of Earth, a world she had only heard of in passing.
As Zara regained her strength, she began to explore the colony, always with John by her side.
The other colonists, who initially viewed her with suspicion, started to soften as they saw the bond forming between her and John. Her gentle demeanor and willingness to help with tasks around the colony gradually won them over. Yet, there was an underlying tension that neither John nor Zara could ignore. In her culture, men were seen as lesser beings, subservient to women. The Seraphis viewed males as little more than pets or servants, valued for their physical strength, but not their intellect or autonomy. This cultural norm had been ingrained in Zara since birth, and though she was beginning to see John as more than just a caretaker, she struggled to reconcile her upbringing with her growing respect for him. Chapter 3. The Turning Point. One evening, as they sat by a small fire outside John's quarters, Zara spoke of her home once more. But this time, there was a sadness in her voice that John hadn't heard before.
I miss my world, John, she admitted, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames.
I miss the warmth of the sun on my skin, the sound of the wind in the trees, the sense of belonging. Here I feel lost. John's heart ached for her. He had seen the loneliness in her eyes, the way she would stare out at the horizon as if searching for something just out of reach.
He knew that feeling all too well. I know what it's like to feel lost, he said quietly.
To be far from home, from everything you know and love.
But you're not alone, Zara.
You have me.
She looked at him then, her eyes shining with unshed tears. But what am I to you, John? A burden?
A responsibility?
You're more than that, he replied, his voice firm.
You are my friend, and maybe you could be more. Zara's breath caught in her throat. In her culture, such words would be unthinkable.
A man suggesting equality partnership. It was unheard of.
And yet, as she looked into John's earnest eyes, she felt a stirring in her heart, a yearning she couldn't quite understand.
I don't know if I can be what you want me to be, she whispered, her voice trembling. You don't have to be anything but yourself, John assured her. We can figure this out together. For the first time, Zara allowed herself to consider the possibility. Could she, a Seraphis woman, truly see a human man as her equal? Could she let go of the beliefs that had shaped her entire life? The questions haunted her, but the warmth in John's eyes gave her hope. That night, as the fire died down and the stars emerged in the sky, Zara made a decision. She would open her heart to this strange, kind man who had saved her life.
She would try to see the world through his eyes, and maybe, just maybe, they could find a new path together. Chapter 4. A New Understanding.
In the weeks that followed, Zara and John grew closer, their bond deepening with each passing day.
Zara began to share more of her knowledge with John, teaching him
about her people's history, culture, and their connection to the natural world.
In turn, John introduced Zara to the simple pleasures of human life, sharing meals,
telling jokes, and even dancing to old earth music on a portable player he had salvaged.
The colony's residents, once distant, began to accept Zara as one of their own. Her presence brought a new energy to the community, and she soon became a valued member, offering her wisdom and skills to help improve life on the harsh planet. But it wasn't just the colonists who were changing.
Zara herself was undergoing a profound transformation.
The rigid beliefs she had held for so long were beginning to soften,
replaced by a new understanding of what it meant to be truly equal. She saw John not as a lesser being, but as a partner Samean she could trust, respect, and care for.
One evening, as they sat together on a hill overlooking the colony, Zara finally voiced the thoughts that had been swirling in her mind. John, I've been thinking a lot about us, she began, her voice hesitant but steady.
About what we mean to each other.
John turned to her, his expression open and patient. And what have you decided?
I want to be more than just your friend, she said, her heart pounding in her chest. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word. But I need you to understand that this is new for me. I've never seen a man as an equal before, and I'm still learning what that means.
John smiled, a warmth spreading through him at her words.
We'll figure it out together, he said, taking her hand in his. There's no rush.
We have all the time in the world.
As they sat there, hand in hand, the stars shining brightly above them, Zara felt a sense of peace she had never known. For the first time in her life, she was free to choose her own path, free to love without fear or hesitation.
Chapter 5. Changing Hearts.
News of Zara and John's partnership soon spread throughout the colony and beyond.
It wasn't long before the story reached the ears of the Seraphis, who were both shocked and intrigued by the idea of one of their own forming a bond with a human man.
At first, there was resistance. Many in Zara's society viewed her actions as a betrayal of their values, a threat to the delicate balance of power that had governed their world for centuries. But as more and more Seraphis women heard the story, they began to question their own beliefs.
Was it possible that they had been wrong about men? Could there be more to them than they had been taught? Zara's example sparked a quiet revolution among her people.
Women who had never considered the idea of partnership with a man began to
see the potential for something deeper and more meaningful than the traditional roles they had always known.
Back on Zenthara, Zara and John continued to build their life together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They faced challenges, of course, of cultural differences, misunderstandings, and the occasional clash of wills.
But through it all, they remained committed to each other, determined to make their partnership work.
In time, Zara's people came to accept her choice and even to celebrate it.
She and John became symbols of a new way of thinking, a new understanding of what it meant to love and be loved. Their story was told and retold, inspiring others to open their hearts and minds to the possibility of change. And as they stood together, hand in hand, beneath the stars of Zenthara, Zara and John knew that they had not only found each other, they had found a new way of life, a new way of being. Together, they had changed the hearts of an entire race, and in doing so, they had found a love that would endure for all time.